Hello, and welcome to The Blind Potato. I have 3 short horror stories for you today. And if you want to learn more about the authors, link in the description. The title of the first story is I Have the Ability to Understand Animals. Before we start, I would just like to invite you to please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you won't miss any of my future uploads. So, get comfy and let's begin. For some background, I've always been able to understand animals, but I never knew it was an ability, and I thought I was going insane. My earliest memory of my ability was when my parents brought home a rescue dog as a gift after I begged them for a puppy, and the dog started telling me it was going to kill me if I mistreated him like his previous owners, and I burst into tears. My parents assumed it was me being scared until I told them what he'd said, and their faces showed a concerning look. A look I only grew to become all too familiar with. Shortly, I was thrown from psychologist to psychologist, becoming an object of research for varying antipsychotics as the voices never went away. It was only in my teen years that I really started to listen. I was at the tail end of my rebellious streak and had unofficially been off my medication. And on my walks to school, I'd hear all manner of things, from birds planning how they build their nests to the ants having orders barked at them for their strict regiment and loyalty to their queen. I even get to know some regulars. There was an old dog that would sit on the porch of my house on my route named Gus. He told me his actual name was Tom, and went into great detail about his life and how he was briefly stray before being taken in and living a calm life away from his primitive past. It's not all it's made up to be, though. People still thought I was crazy when they caught me chatting to various bugs on the wall or having more profound interactions with pets beyond the condescending "who's a good boy" spiel. Once I was out of school and I was in the workplace, I chose to ignore the animals I came across, which became increasingly difficult as I'd gotten to know all the creatures in my immediate vicinity, and I couldn't afford to move away, so I always had a handful of voices calling for me on my commute, and it was like I was back right to being insane. A full year passed like this, ignoring the animals I had come to know and appreciate. I got along fine until they all stopped talking to me altogether. And it was only then that I thought about what I'd done. I'd taken away their only bridge of communication between their world and ours, their only way to be really understood, and this gave me a change of heart. So, on my day off, I went out and tried to talk to as many animals as I could to re-establish our connection and offer back what I'd ripped from them. But I heard nothing. I hadn't noticed it before, but the world was more silent than I'd ever known it to be. But through my ignorance, I never noticed. I ran to every creature and animal I saw, desperate to help, to listen, to hear something. But all I got back was stern silence and several pleas to stop harassing people's pets. I got so desperate that I went back to Tom's porch, in the hopes that the old boy had pushed through the years and could be the voice of reason. But he wasn't there. Obviously, he had passed. No dog could have lived this long, especially one who was already as old as him. However, there was another, more spry-looking hound in Tom's old spot. So, I approached him. Again, I was met with silence and decided to just rant to the dog. After all, it wasn't going to stop me, was it? I went for ages, tearing up about my guilt, how I know what I'd done, and begged for forgiveness. Then I heard something, whispered quietly underneath a breath. I turned to the hound to listen closer, could just barely make out what he was saying. "You take from us, we take from you." I was taken aback and walked away slowly. The dog never looked at me, but I'm glad. As creepy as it was, I didn't want to face the thing head on. I walked home dejected and hardly noticed the now increasing cacophony around me. That was the noise I'd been missing for years. But it was off. It was in unison, all of them repeating the same phrase. You take from us, we take from you. It followed me home, more and more voices adding to the terrifying symphony. As animals flocked to my location, I made it home, and I'm now putting this post out. My house is surrounded, and there's more voices joining by the minute. What do they want to take from me? The title of this next story is Driving Without a License is Amazing. Driving without a license is amazing, and I wish I had done it a long time ago. I had lost my driving license due to reckless driving, and I had to redo my driving lessons. I couldn't be bothered doing my driving lessons all over again, as I was short on money. It seems like everything is coming on top of me. One day I had to walk in the rain, as I didn't have a car anymore, and my financial situation had worsened, as I couldn't even afford driving anymore. Then one day, somebody borrowed me their car as they saw me walking in the rain. This person is my neighbor, and he asked me about my car, and I told him everything about me losing my license and not having any money. After hearing that, my neighbor suddenly wanted me to drive his car, and he wanted to sit in the passenger seat, but said that because he had a license, it would stop me from experiencing great things if he was to be in the car. I started driving his car, and I noticed the rain never touched the car, nor the winter cold ever froze the car, because I didn't have a driving license. When I hit someone, I thought I had killed them, but then they got up and said to me, "Because you were driving without a license, I'm still alive." And she walked off. I couldn't believe it, and it felt good to drive without a driving license, and I felt no road rage or even sleepiness. Even if I did purposely fall asleep at the wheel, any person I had hit and killed, they weren't dead, because only drivers with licenses can only kill people. I never thought the benefits of driving without a license, and I wished I could have done this years ago. When I drive through haunted roads and creatures of the night stop and stare at me, they don't dare cross the road when a driver without a license is driving through. It terrifies them. And when I hit my car against another car who has a driver with a driver's license, it is instantly their fault, and only they sustain injuries and consequences of the car crash. Whenever I run through a ghost or a dead body, both of them become part of the living. Driving without a license is amazing. I still get chased by police, and I guess they don't want people knowing the great benefits of driving without a license. The title of this next story is I Am a Nurse That Can See the Future. I can see the future, and I love seeing the future. It helps me prepare for things, especially as a nurse. Like my coworker, I told her that in an hour I was going to slap her, and that she had to prepare for the slap. She told me that I didn't have to slap her, and that I could choose not to do it. I told her that it is the future, and the future is set in stone. So, when the hour passed, I slapped my coworker, and she was amazed how the future came true. Being able to know the future is very useful. Then I told the patient's family that I was going to kill the patient in 2 hours, and that they should prepare for the death. They knew I was the nurse that could see the future, and they have been in the hospital for many weeks now. The patient's family first came to know future seeing powers when I told him that I was going to knock their coffees out of their hands in an hour's time. When they first came here, they were amazed when I knocked their coffees from out of their hands. Then, after 2 hours, I put the patient to death by increasing insulin to dangerous levels, and the patient's family were upset and amazed by how I knew the future of this happening. I cried along with them as the patient was dead, and I kept in contact with them after the whole ordeal. I was grateful for being able to see the future and to warn the patient's family about what I was going to do in the future. Seeing the future is amazing. Then, with another sick patient, I told the family about what the future had held for their sick mother. I told the sick mother's family that in 3 hours' time, I was going to poison their mother and that they should prepare for her death. They were grateful for telling them the future. And as I poisoned their mother when the 3 hours were up, they all hugged me and were prepared for her death. They were so glad that I knew the future of what I was going to do. They all stood around their mother and started crying, and so did I. Because in that moment, their mother felt like my own mother. I was able to see the future ever since I was a child. When I was 8, I knew that I was going to kill my dog, and I did. I am grateful to be a nurse and to be able to see the future at the same time. If you enjoy those horror stories, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and click one of the videos here if you want more horror stories like that. And as usual, I'll see you again next time. You have a creepy evening.